Okay, this happened in August of 2016. We were called out to do an event, a first time event. Mike was excited, we all were excited, and plus, Jeff had a new location that he wanted to show us. And he was really excited because he had photographed I do believe, a Sasquatch from that location. And it's very intriguing. That photograph is on the SIR website. And he is proud of that video. He loves that video. I quit saying video. It's a photograph. It's just a photograph. But it's a good photograph. And he did a follow-up picture where he stood in the exact same place. If you're going to do Bigfooting, you do exactly what Jeff is doing and what I'm about to tell you to do. Go back. If you take a picture of a Sasquatch and you think, oh, that's a Sasquatch, go back to that spot and retake that photograph. And it doesn't matter if it's a year later, great. Same conditions, worse conditions, doesn't matter. Go back to that spot and retake that photograph. There's a reason why you want to do that, because you want to prove that photograph that the picture that you took, you want to make sure it was the same time, same part of the day, and hopefully the sun is doing the same thing, and take the photograph. Now, he had Teresa walk around a tree, and she discovered that there was a hole on the other side of that tree. Now, that Sasquatch was taller than both of them, and he was standing in a hole, a 3-foot depth hole. So if that Sasquatch is, say, 6, 7, 8 feet tall, then you got to add on that additional 3 feet, because when Teresa walked over and stood in that hole, you could barely see her in that photograph. Barely see her, because she is down here in this 3-foot hole, and this thing was taller than they were. Sasquatches do that. You have to go back out to those locations. You have to go back and retrace your steps, try to take the same photograph again. And it is absolutely imperative to do that. If you take a picture of a Sasquatch and go, that's a Bigfoot, and you go back, you never go back, prove it. How do you know that's a Sasquatch? Go back. Go look at it. The BFRO has a lot of videos, a lot of TV shows that they showed this, the same thing. You want to go back to that same spot. You want researchers to go to that location where that Sasquatch is, and then you can work out to say, well, hold on, is that a stump over there? And then they can pair up that picture and go, that looks like the same thing. And then somebody walks back to that object and sees it. One of my photographs, the same thing applied. It was Tony, me, and Jim went back out to where I thought I photographed a female out on a log. Looks like a female. She's holding. It looks like she's doing this. And she's looking down toward the valley. Now, I had seen this because I saw movement and all this other stuff, and I was looking at it through the lens of my camera. But when I photographed it, when I was coming off the mountain to take some shots, some quick shots, the photographs that I took, it looked right. And then when we were coming back up the mountain and we were investigating, Tony was to my left somewhere, and I had stopped and I had looked at this one tree, and it looked like a female standing on a log doing this. And I was like, Tony, is this right? Am I seeing this right? And so I opened up my picture, and we eyed it, and we both said the same thing. Now, Tony right away, he said, I discovered it. And no, he didn't discover squat. He took a photograph, I took a photograph. We both took photographs of that same spot. But the kicker is, I wasn't standing at that spot when I photographed the Sasquatch the first time. Or when I photographed the illusion. I thought I saw something to my left. Move. What the hell? So I'm at 2 different locations filming the same target. That's kind of an oddity. That seems kind of off if I'm not standing at the exact same spot. And we were down lower than where we should have been. But it's still the same thing. It still had a log behind a log. and it made it look like it was bigger, slightly bigger than what it was, and it just fooled me into thinking I photographed something. That photograph we dismissed because that photograph was not accurate. And if we would never have known that if we didn't go back and retry that photograph. I can claim that, yeah, that photograph was it was an optical illusion. And a lot of photographs that you see on Facebook are optical illusions. I have seen stumps that look like a Sasquatch, but I throw it into, say, Adobe Lightroom, and I can clean up those images, and I can say, nope, that is a stump, and I can show you. And then here's their dark image, and then I compare it to the new image that's been lightened up, and the shadows are, I've offset the shadows so the shadows fade away, and here's a stump looking right at you. And they're like, oh. But that was a Sasquatch before you adjusted it. That is still a stump. It's still a stump, and there's nothing you do about it. But you, as a researcher, you got to be able to go back out to that spot and research that spot. I've been out at this location a gazillion times, and I love this location because it keeps yielding new things. Since 2016, I think I've hit that location. I want to say I've been there every year but one. I think it was during COVID. But that area in general yields craziness, and it is nonstop craziness. The first night we arrived, the 9 of us, and it was, I want to get this right, hopefully I didn't already do this, there was 9 of us, right, 9. So we have Jeff, Teresa, Yalek, you have Mike, Scott, and Trenton. Then there's Dave, AJ, Tony, and myself. That was 9 of us. That was it. So the first year, or the first time we were out there, Tony slept in my tent. And it was, everything was great. There was no big issues. Tony didn't stay the whole length. He was there, I want to say he was there until Sunday. And the idea was we went out on Friday, and we stayed Saturday and Friday night and Saturday night, and then everybody was going to take off and go back home, and Jeff and Teresa were going to stay for a week. Great. I had my night vision camera. We went out, we explored the area. And I have a lot of photographs, lots of photographs to show, and it's all kinds of nuts. Now that campsite has changed drastically since 2016. It's undergone crazy changes. Trees have been knocked over. Trees have been broken. Areas are wiped out. You don't even recognize parts of the area anymore. It's like something was really, really angry and really, really pissed that there were hunters in the area, and it showed why not to come back. And there was all kinds of insanity out there. But the first time we were out there, that area was filled full of trees, just thick forest. And we had a deer. The deer kept roaming around our campsite. We would catch glimpses of it. And there was a whole lot of things that went into this night. So Tony leaves on Sunday after we take a group photo. Tony, Dave, and AJ, they leave. They're out. That night, I'm going to set the stage for. And the next video, which will be on Wednesday or Thursday, depending how I lay this thing out, we'll talk about the beginnings of the weirdness that happens. So I decided to do 2 things. The first thing I was going to do, I made blueberry cobbler for everybody on the last night. Oh, so this Sunday, I got retract back. Sunday, I had this weird sensation. And the sensation kept coming across in my head. Stay one more night. Stay one more night. You need to stay one more night. And I had Sunday night off. I didn't have to be back at work. I had to be back at work on Monday night. So I finally told Jeff and Teresa, hey, I'm going to stay one more night. And they said, that's fine. You can stay one more night. Not a big deal. I turned around and saw Mike and said, hey, Mike, I'm going to stay one more night. And he goes, why? And I said, because there's something in my head telling me to stay. And so I'm going to stay one more night just to see what this is. And he said, okay. So Mike decided to stay one more night. So Mike and Trenton and Scott stayed in their big tent, and I stayed in my teepee. And I'm going to put a picture up, a diagram about what this thing looked like. So now I can speed back up. So I brought two things with me. I brought my hammock and a pair of bells, little like fishing bells. If a fish hits that line, it goes ding-ling-ling-ling. It lets you know that your worm is being devoured by a fish. I had two of those bells, my hammock, and I made this big thing of blueberry cobbler. And the can was like, it was like a giant size Folger type can, where the really big ones, And I used 3/4 of those blueberries, and it left me with about 4 inches deep of solid blueberries and blueberry sauce or blueberry juice or whatever it is. And while everybody was hanging out by the campfire, I decided to go back into the woods, and there was a structure back there, and the structure had a really big log, huge log. It had a series of logs that went around in a kind of looked like a bow shape, and then there were logs that went from one pine tree across. It was like they were almost like back to back, and then led back to this giant log. And I thought, I knew right away that this was a structure of some sort. So I decided, and it was away from everybody, totally away from everybody. This was probably about 50, 60 yards away from the campsite. Not far enough for a bear to come visit, but far enough that I thought, what the heck, it can't hurt. So I took that open can of blueberries and I poured it from one end of that log all the way across to the other end of that log. This is very important. When I did this and I poured it all out and made sure all the things were out onto that log, I grabbed random blueberries out of that group, threw them in my mouth. Now I had blueberry stains on my fingers, and the juices were still on my fingers. So I did this. I went lick, 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 lick. I licked all my fingers and my thumb, and then I went. All these things are very important. So I said, I hope you enjoy the blueberries. This is from me to you. I hope you enjoy it. Now, I can't see anything but trees. I don't hear anything. But I had something watching me the whole time. And I didn't even know it. The birds were still chirping. The squirrels were still making their noise. And we had probably about 24 squirrels that night. We had maybe 3 family type squirrels left by that morning. And it's not because of the blueberries. So I go walking back, and I'm saying, I hope you enjoy this. It's from me to you. And I walk away. I walk back. I grab my hammock. I stretch my hammock. Now it's beginning to get dark, and everybody's eating the blueberry cobbler. I eat it too. And I stretch the hammock across from one tree, from one aspen, across the other. Now across from my tent, there's a whole bunch of baby aspens and some adult aspens. So I went ahead and tied off one side, tied it to the other, got it all tight. I put one bell on one side, one bell on the other. And I went ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling, 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 ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling. And everybody at the campsite quit talking, and they were all watching me. They're like, you think something's going to happen? He goes, don't know. He thinks something's going to happen. Why not? Can't hurt. So I come walking back out from the darkness where my hammock is. Oh, and I sat in the hammock. And I kind of sat there for a minute. I said, this is how you sit in a hammock. And I sat down in the hammock, relaxed. Got out of the hammock, left everything in place, walked back to where everybody was at, and I started taking some photographs at night. And then at some point, Jeff and Teresa got up. They said, well, we're going to go to sleep. This was probably about I want to say 9, 10 o'clock at night. In the mountains, it is pitch black out there. Once the lights go out, it's dark. Unless the moon shows, it's dark. You can't really see your hand in front of your face. So after a little bit, Trenton, he goes off. He says he's going to bed. Mike is with me still, and Scott goes, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna go to sleep too." So they go off to the tent, and Mike said, "Well, let's put out the fire." And I said, "Okay." So we start to pour out the fire, and we douse it. We covered this thing with water. We put like 2 or 3 gallons of water on this fire. There's probably about this much standing water at the base of that fire. Inside, there's no coals burning that we can see. There's some here and there, but all the wood is wet. Everything's wet, so there's no chance of that thing to jump and create a bigger fire. So I'm going to stop this video now because I don't want to have to kill it after the next segment. The videos you're going to watch coming up or during this video actually happened a couple nights prior, or the night or two, a couple nights prior or the night before, of us walking around and videotaping using the night vision camera. My name is Patrick. This is Sasquatch in the Wild, and I hope you're enjoying your journey. I'll see you on Wednesday or Thursday. Bye. Hey guys, it's me. One more thing I forgot to talk about. When I was walking out to that hammock, or to set up the hammock, I put my hands down, and I could feel the baby aspens going across the bottom of my hands. I had gone out like 2 times to the hammock, and I did that. I put my hands down to where I could feel the baby aspens, the tops of the trees kind of touching my hand, and went back out, did that twice, came back. Now that's also very important because of something that happens that night. The blueberries, the touching of the baby aspens, and those bells are part of this. So I had to add that little feature in. Okay, so I'm going to cut this free now, and you can do whatever you want. I'll see you on the next video. Bye.